So as Christmas is now right around the corner, that can only mean one thing: the January transfer window is almost upon us. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look into each championship squad, and I'm going to be giving you a position that I think each championship team could do with strengthening in this January window. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this one down below. If you only got the opportunity to strengthen one position in January, which one would you pick? As always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If we did 200 likes, that would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. Huddersfield Town, I'm going to have to go with the striker. Danny Ward and Jordan Rhodes, their top scorers up until this point with 3 goals each, but past that, it's been pretty slim pickings in terms of goals in this Huddersfield 11. Just 19 scored so far this season. They are the joint lowest scorers in the championship. Whether that striker is someone that's going to have a little bit of pace and that can make some penetrating runs in behind, or someone who can get on the end of all the set pieces they like to put in, that's at their discretion. But I think a striker is the bare minimum for what Huddersfield have to pick up in January if they want to survive. With Blackpool, I'm going to go with an experienced centre-half. They've conceded 33 goals at this point of the season. They've got the second worst defensive record in the league, and it just feels like that back line is screaming out for a little bit of help. Last season they had Richie Keogh in that experienced role. I feel like Ekpiteta's performances have fallen off this season, maybe as a result of not having that experienced player alongside him. Obviously, halfway through the season, Appleton made the quite controversial decision to bring Chris Maxwell back into the frame as their number one ahead of Dan Grimshaw. One of the reasons behind doing that at the time, he claimed, was to add a little bit of experience into that back line. And I just feel like if they have that experienced player in that back four, they could then revert that and go back to playing Grimshaw, who I think is a better goalkeeper than Maxwell. Wigan Athletic, I'm going to say another option in the midfield. It seems as if Kolo Toure is wanting to revamp the style of play. We saw a few glimpses of that in the game against Millwall. Obviously the build-up and the goal to the Will Keane strike. And it just feels as if they want to go ahead and do that, maybe they need a different profile of player in midfield, someone who will be able to be comfortable on the ball, receiving it from the centre-halves, taking it up the pitch and playing those penetrative passes. Also think another number 9 could be useful as well. Obviously so far this season, Josh McGuinness just the 1 goal, Charlie White 2 goals so far, and then Ashley Fletcher, it's not quite happened for. A lot of their goals have come from Will Keane, who's been playing in that number 10 role. Hull City, I'm going to go for a strong presence in midfield, someone who can balance out the rest of those attacking players that they've got in that squad. I think there's been a few examples this season where they have been overrunning that area and just sort of out-battled because they've not had the physicality in that position of the pitch. There is a lot of talent in that whole squad, and we're seeing the slow steps that Rossini has taken to make them more competitive and to ship less goals, but I think an extra combative defensive midfielder would go a long way to improving this whole squad. Cardiff, I think, is a pretty self-explanatory one. They need some more firepower. They need another forward in that team. They are the joint lowest scorers in the championship up until this point with Huddersfield, just 19 goals across their first 22 matches. Callum Robinson, I like the signing of in the summer. He's got 8 goal contributions in just 12 matches this season, which shows just how reliant they've actually been on his numbers being good so far, but he could desperately do with a little bit of help in the final third. Stoke City, I'm still going to go for a goalkeeper. We mentioned this one quite a bit in the summer, and I still think it's applicable to Stoke's situation. Obviously that number 1 place has sort of flipped this season between Bursic and Bonham. I'm not sure either of them are quite up to the billing at the moment, and in terms of save percentage for championship goalkeepers this season, both of them rank in the sort of lower quartile for championship shot stoppers, and there's quite a lot of fires I feel like that Neil needs to put out at this Stoke side, but consistency starts from the back, and it does feel like they need that long-term established number 1 to come in January. Rotherham, I'm going to say another forward. Feel like they could always do with a little bit more firepower, and they are fairly well stocked up in some of the other positions further down the pitch. Obviously Ogbeni's been their main man going forward this season, 6 goals already, and then past that they've had quite a few defenders chipping in with the goals. You know, Richard Wood with 4 so far this season, but another option as an alternative to him up front I think could be useful. West Brom, I'm going to say left back. Don't feel as if Connor Townsend has quite been himself over these last 18 months or so. Didn't have a great game on Monday night as he gave away that penalty, and someone else to push him in that position I think could be quite useful for West Brom. Across the rest of the pitch, I'd say there is still promise for this West Brom side to improve as the season goes on. Obviously up front with Daryl DK back in the action, back in the goals as well, as he showcased on Monday night. He could be a huge player in the second half of the season. Bristol City, I feel as if they could do with another option in midfield. I like some of the players they've got in those positions at the moment. Joe Williams can be effective. Alex Scott's obviously fantastic for his age as well, but Andy King isn't exactly getting any younger, and it does feel as if Hando Masenga is now completely out of the equation for Bristol City because of that contract situation. So to go ahead and add a little bit more into that position, I think could be useful in January. Coventry, I think the most obvious area is probably another attacking fullback is where they could do with strengthening. A lot of Coventry's strengths in seasons gone by has been how good those wing-backs have been at times. Obviously someone like an Ian Maxton was absolutely fantastic there last season. Bidwell very solid defensively on that left-hand side, but you just feel as if someone else could offer maybe a little bit more going forward if they were to bring in another player. Birmingham, I'm going to say another striker. Scott Hogan's done really well so far this season, 9 goals already, but when he's not in that side, I think that lack of firepower up front is quite apparent. You know, we saw at the weekend them drawing a blank against Blackpool, even with them creating a fair few chances in that game. Hogan's their top scorer with 9. After that, the top scorer drops down to just 3 with Troy Deeney. So yeah, another player of that ilk may be needed. Lewin Town, I'm going to say another defender, especially playing with a back 3. There's been times this season where within that back 3 they've been having to compensate for the lack of centre-halves. We're playing full-backs and players of different positions in those areas, but I feel like with another competent centre-half that issue will be resolved. Middlesbrough, I'm going to say someone that can play out wide. Now they seem to be transitioning away from that Chris Wilder mould of the 3 at the back and the wing-backs, and they seem to be going towards a more traditional back 4 in that sort of 4-2-3-1 formation. Someone who is capable of playing on either flank quite naturally, I think would be a welcome addition to this Borough side for the second half of the season. Obviously, the likes of Riley McGree, Isaiah Jones, Giles can be played in those positions, but all sort of out of position a little bit, and someone with that natural bit of flair that can break the lines, have to take people on in 1v1 situations, I think really could take this Borough side to the next level, because this squad is sort of half built in the mould of Wilder at the moment, which probably isn't helpful for Carrick. I think it's been obvious to see that Sunderland have been crying out for another striker for the majority of the season, but with Ellis Sims now back in the picture and Rush Stewart soon to return as well, I'm actually going to say that they could maybe prioritise a different position. I think another midfielder that could add a little bit more of a physical presence into that Sunderland side would be a useful addition to Tony Mowbray's setup for the second half of the season. And who knows, with a few more additions, I really don't think they're a million miles away from a top 6 push. Swansea, pretty obvious. I think they're massively lacking a natural right wing back. I think across the rest of that starting 11 there is decent championship quality in there, but the addition of an extra and competent attacking right wing back really could take Swansea up another dimension, would make them a little bit less predictable maybe in their build-up play as well. Last season had, you know, 2 of the best in that position really in each half of the season, in Cyrus Christie and Ethan Laird, and someone in that mould would go down a treat for Swansea in the second half of the season. QPR, I think it's another pretty obvious one. Definitely need a striker in the January transfer window. Lyndon Dykes has done the job so far this season to have got 6 goals, but those creative assets they have in a Chris Willock and Ilias Chair, I feel like need that other presence up forward who is that natural goal scorer, and with that could be the missing piece of the puzzle to go ahead and get that bit more consistency from them and make them a lot more threatening in the final third. With Reading, I still feel as if they could do with another option in the forward end of the pitch. If you look at how many goals they've scored so far this season, 24 scored in 22, so only just averaging over a goal a game. Obviously they do have the likes of Lucas João, Yaku Mete, Andy Carroll, but with Lucas João's contract situation, Andy Carroll not going to be a long-term option there. Probably is wise that they are evaluating their striker options long-term and past this season as well. So someone else who could chip in the final third, I think would be a handy addition in January. Millwall, I also feel as if could do with another option in the front end of the pitch. They showcased in the summer transfer market how effective they can actually be. You know, they got an absolute bargain in the end for Zian Fleming, but feels as if he could do with a little bit more support in that final third. For example, so far this season, Tom Bradshaw and Benik Afobe between them only have 6 goals. Fleming himself already has 9. There are chances to be had in this Millwall squad, maybe just needs a little bit more quality in those areas. My team, Preston North End, I'm still going to say a right wing back. Another striker definitely needed in the January window as well, but Ched Evans seems to have found a little bit of form, and you know, Emil Rees can also bag goals as well. Just feel as if another player on that right hand side could take us up to that next level. I think we're sorted on the left hand side with Alvaro Fernandez and Robbie Brady, both been really good so far this season, but on that right hand side, while Brad Potts is a solid option to have there defensively, I don't think we get enough output from him from an attacking point of view, and if we did have that extra player with that little bit of dynamism on that right hand side, I think we'd become a little bit less predictable with how we like to build up the play on the left hand side. And yeah, who knows what we could achieve for the rest of the season if that happened. Watford definitely in need of another central midfielder, someone who can take control of games, break those lines from those deeper positions and just connect everything really, get a little bit more fluidity within this Watford side, which seems to be missing, because there is a hell of a lot of talent, I still believe, in the final third of this Watford side if there's a cohesive unit which another central midfielder could sort of tie all of this together. Norwich, I don't think are in need of a great deal, if I'm honest. I think Dean Smith has a lot of the pieces in place in this squad. It's just about him now getting the best out of this group, and there just seems to be that little bit of inconsistency within them, certainly when it comes to consistent performance levels. But they are in the top 6, they are in the promotion hunt. One player or one position that could potentially take them up a gear, potentially another wide man to go ahead and add a little bit more dynamism to this side in the final third. On a few occasions they have looked a little bit predictable with how they go ahead and build up the play. Someone who is good in those 1v1 situations on either flank could be useful. Blackburn, a few problem positions have cropped up over these last few game weeks. Certainly think they could do with brushing up in those defensive areas. It's maybe a little bit misleading that they've only conceded 26 goals so far this season because of how good Thomas Kaminski's actually been. He's dug them out of so many occasions. I'm sure the XG numbers will back it up, and will have had Blackburn conceding considerably more goals than they have done up until this point. Midfield also maybe become a little bit of a problem position across the last few matches for Rovers. They have got out-battled and overrun in those positions. Sheffield United, I think, should they keep everyone fit from now on, are looking really strong for a promotion push. I think the whole squad's looking fairly healthy in terms of competition for places and actual quality in the starting 11 as well. If I had to pick out one position, maybe another dynamic midfielder to come into that midfield 3 to give them a little bit of extra something, but the more I look through that squad, the more I think that they will be in this one for the long run in terms of an automatic promotion push. I think they've got the quality in the squad already. And I'm finishing it off with Burnley, and a lot of what I've just said for Sheffield United there, I'd also echo for this Burnley squad. I think they're looking really healthy at the moment and certainly already have the quality within that side to go ahead and be challenging for automatic promotion come the end of the season. Couple positions that I'd maybe pick out, maybe another number 9. Obviously there has been some talk of Weghorst potentially coming back from that loan spell in the January window. Obviously had quite the impact in the World Cup in the end in that game against Argentina. Burnley fans would be interested to hear your guys' view on that one down below. Obviously Joe Rodriguez, to be fair to him, has done the business so far this season with 9 goals, but another number 9 certainly wouldn't go amiss. As well as that, maybe another centre half, but honestly I think Burnley are looking really strong for competition at the moment. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. That is every Championship club and which position I think they should be looking into strengthening come the January transfer window. Do you agree with my picks? Let me know in the comments down below. Apart from that, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.